Hello, my name is Mayor, and today I will be discussing torts in relation to the construction environment. So we can begin with the three kinds of torts: intentional, negligence, and strict liability. Intentional are wrongful desired acts that are done on purpose. This can include battery, assault, false imprisonment, trespassing to land, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. With negligence, failure to act upon responsibility or duty is an act of carelessness. Negligence has five requirements: breach of duty, proximate causation, duty of care, causation in fact, and actual injury. With strict liability, this is an injury causing behavior. This means that this injury does not have to be intentional or necessarily negligent. This can include product defects from production, working with hazardous materials, and performing hazardous activities. We can begin with the first tort example through negligence. A cement worker is laying down wet cement and chooses to not secure an area with tape and place warning signs. About an hour later, a different worker walks by and falls into the wet cement, causing injury to their knee. With this, the worker decides to take action and sue for negligence. This is considered to be negligence because it meets the five requirements of, first, breach of duty, which is that the cement worker had the obligation to warn and notify their peers and other workers working to be cautious about the wet cement and its dangers. Proximate causation is expressed through the cement worker knowing that people could get hurt if they aren't warned about the wet cement. Duty of care was unreasonable because this act was foreseeable and could harm others. The causation, in fact, is proven through showing that the injury was a cause of this wrongful doing. This means that the individual hurt their knee from the fall, and they had to go to the hospital for treatment. There was actual injury that was caused from the cement worker deciding not to place the warning signs. And in this case, the victim could choose to sue for punitive damages due to the negligent acts of the cement workers. A defense to this that could be used by the cement workers could be the assumption of risk due to working in a construction zone, meaning that this defense could mean that due to the fact that an individual is working in a construction site, they should be aware of the dangers and be cautious of their surroundings. The second example is intentional. A fire alarm sprinkler installer gets into an argument with an inspector regarding their work. The installer states that he will strangle the inspector if he continues to critique his work. The employee then strikes the inspector with his hard hat, and the inspector decides to sue the employee for an intentional tort. In this case, the inspector can sue for assault and battery. The assault is the threat made toward the employee, made by the employee to strangle him, and the battery was the actual strike the employee made toward the inspector. Depending on the emotional distress caused, the inspector can also sue for causing emotional distress. The other categories related to intentional tort that aren't included in this case are false imprisonment and trespassing to land. The third tort example is negligence. A crane worker is rigging HVAC equipment and components at a closed-off street in New York City. Every time the crane lifts any object, traffic is stopped in the streets and walkways are blocked off by cones and employees. This is done to ensure that if something goes wrong and items fall, no one is harmed from the accident. So a bystander becomes impatient and decides to pass the cones and employees telling him otherwise. Just before he makes it across the dangerous area, a piece of debris falls from the building, killing the violator. And the family of the victim therefore decides to sue for negligence. In this case, the family would sue because there was a breach of duty, which was to keep others from entering the dangerous area. However, in order for a negligence tort to be applicable, it must meet all five requirements. The proximate causation would work in the rigger's favor, because there was proximate causation that if anyone was to disobey the safety rules set by the employees and the cones around the perimeter, people were subject to possible harm through their own endangerment from not listening to the warnings. A fourth example would be through strict liability. A carpenter uses a Sawzall electric saw to cut through sheet metal at a job site. The Sawzall overheats and burns the carpenter's hand, causing the employee to seek medical attention. The carpenter decides to sue the Sawzall company under strict liability. The category related to this tort would be that the product was defective. In this case, the carpenter can try to sue for punitive damages relating to the product defectiveness. However, the Sawzall company can defend by stating that the blade that the carpenter used was the wrong blade and it was supposed to be used for wood rather than metal. Another defense the Sawzall company could say is that the metal the carpenter tried to cut through was too thick for the Sawzall's capability um, as written in its manual. In conclusion, torts exist to provide relief to people from the wrongful and irresponsible acts of others. Acting irresponsibly is a manner that is essential when the well-being of others is involved. Individuals who fail to comply with these standards will surely face legal action of others and ultimately significantly affect their reputation and their company's reputation. Therefore, it is essential to understand the law and to follow the rules. Thank you.